Hey everybody, and welcome back to Split Couch Games. I'm Scott,
And I'm Ben.
and this is another podcast. This is podcast number 20, and we have a kind of a special podcast because we actually have a topic that was requested by one of our community members. Viper the Red asks ask Ben specifically to finish his rant about buying a license versus actually owning a game, and a couple of things to go along with that, such as if you own Breath of the Wild on Wii U or Switch, do you have the right to play the emulation on a PC? So we're going to just jump right into it. Thank you, Viper the Red, for your question, and we will hopefully satisfy your curiosity. Go, Ben,
All right.
go!
All right. So, just to start off, I kind of expect that this is probably going to be a video that, if it gets an appropriate number of views and everything, it's going to receive an appropriate number of dislikes. So prepare yourself for that one, Scott.
That's what I was afraid that this was going to happen, but I'm prepared to be the devil's advocate for you.
Well, I mean, the only reason I say that is because typically when it comes to these things, you have the group of people like myself that don't participate in pirating, emulation, anything like that. And you have, like the group of people that essentially participates in, piracy and emulation, whether or not they may already legally own a copy of the game is irrelevant. They participate and then they support those things. And then you have the other group that don't participate, that don't support it. And I fall into the latter category. The last time I pirated anything was when I was maybe like 13, and it was music, and that was all I ever did was pirate music. I never pirated any movies or anything like that. I've never pirated, well, actually, I suppose that's technically not true in saying that I've never pirated a game, but it wasn't really like I downloaded it. It was more of a, my friend was like, hey, here, install this. We're going to set up like a private WoW server, and we played for like a day, and that was it.
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people did it. And I want to be clear that, like, when it comes to piracy and all that kind of stuff, like, if you do it, I don't necessarily think you're a bad person. I just don't agree with your choices, and I feel like any justification that you can give is largely irrelevant. But to get back to the comment specifically, last time, I had sort of like a little mini rant about how, most people are of the mind, it's like, oh, well, I bought the game, I should be able to do whatever I want with it, and I should be able to have it and play it forever, blah, 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 blah. And, like, that's the kind of justification that most people use against, most modern forms of DRM, where there's like an online check before you can play the game and that kind of thing. And first of all, I think DRM sucks, but I also think it's kind of like one of those necessary evils. But I also don't think that it's really been done properly. I feel like there are a lot of different things that can be done to improve it. And like online checks before you can play a game is not a good way to go about it. Because, I mean, there's obviously an entire group of people out there that have either unreliable or simply just bone-chillingly slow internet.
Yeah.
But to sit there and say that, well, I bought the game, I should be able to do whatever I want with it, is wrong, to put it plain and simple. Because whenever you purchase a game, whether it's digitally or physically, you are never outright purchasing the game. You're purchasing a legal license to play the game from a consumer standpoint. The moment you do anything to potentially access content or modify content outside of what the developer has explicitly granted permission to do, you are then technically breaking federal guidelines and are liable for potential further legal action, but for the most part, it would at least result in a removal of that license.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean,
So,
like, going even as far back as, like, probably even cartridge days, you know, like Nintendo 64 and everything, maybe even farther, like, every single game cartridge you've ever purchased will have on it in small font either a reference number to some sort of legal documentation basically saying, hey, you're purchasing a license, not the game, or it will have it printed directly on the medium. Like if you pick up an Xbox disc nowadays, it'll say that, you know, this is a license to play the game.
yeah. So I think the question is, though, is that right? Is that something that is fair to the consumer?
I feel like it is. Because, I mean, at what point have you ever been able to manipulate the work of another person just simply because you've purchased the ability to essentially enjoy it? Like, just because you've purchased a DVD doesn't mean you can supercut your own porn scenes in. Like, that's not allowed.
I mean, it is, and you can't redistribute it.
It's really not, though. Legally, it is not allowed.
Well, yeah, but... Well,
and I mean, that's the point, is that, like, realistically,
sure.
we're just talking semantics here.
Yeah.
Like, you can't be like, well, I can do whatever I want with music and with movies and everything. It's like, well, no, legally you can't.
Yeah.
The difference
but I guess,
is,
like, that's my question is like, is it... Or is it really that bad to be able, like, to do things for your personal stuff? Like, obviously, like, you can't change something and then, like, put it out as your own, like, within reason. Obviously, you're able to do parodies and transitive
media.
Yeah. To, you know, to not be copyright blocked. But, like, is that really something that shouldn't be allowed? Because any other product that you buy, you're able to modify it. Like, you can modify your car, you can modify, like, if you know how, you can modify a monitor that you bought, or
Sure.
I'm just looking at things around me. Like, you are able to change the stuff that you buy. Is media that different? Like, you know, barring, like, going around and trying to, like, resell some, like, changing it and then reselling it as that product or something.
Well, I guess a few different things need to be said here. First of all, when it comes to modifying content, you know, be it a car or something like that, you are modifying, first of all, a physical thing as opposed to a digital thing.
Sure.
And at that point, regardless of what item it is, any warranties attached to it are now null and void.
Yeah.
You can have a lifetime transmission warranty on your Ford Focus, but if you, like, if you go in and you modify the engine, like, you don't even touch the transmission, but you modify the engine, that warranty is now null and void.
I want to make it clear for everyone who's like, why the fuck did Ben just say Ford Focus? I actually own a Ford Focus, so it's not like he's like, Ford Focus is the car that I'm thinking about.
I mean, it was honestly just kind of the car that popped into my head. I didn't even really...
I would assume that that's why it popped into your head, not like...
Anyways,
you know, people are modifying their Ford Focuses all the time.
I mean, you'd be surprised. People modify Dodge Neons and think they're hot shit. But we're getting onto a different topic. Anyways, but so like I said, you know, if you modify a physical item, like, at that point you are foregoing any warranties. And depending on the item, you may potentially, technically be opening yourself to legal ramifications. Like, if you modify an Xbox, that goes against the terms of use, and you could technically be pursued for legal charges and fines.
Yeah.
The likelihood of that ever happening is slim to none.
Yeah. So I do want to clarify that anything that could potentially give you an advantage in, like, a competitive scenario or even like just any sort of social scenario, I think that very clearly that is not allowed and should not be allowed because you're ruining the experience for other people.
Yeah. But I mean,
I'm mostly talking about like solo games and things like that. Basically anything that doesn't touch online, because now there's achievements and stuff which goes into that social aspect.
Yeah.
But if you're offline or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. But I mean, like the entire, side commentary last podcast started because mainly because like I was drawing lines between like what is actually owning a video game and that kind of thing. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that like to say, it's like, oh well, I buy physical because I like to own my games.
Yeah.
And I feel like they mean what they say in the sense that like they want to have like the physical thing that they can pick up and look at and have memories, which I can totally understand. But I do also know that there are people out there that they think just because they own the physical disc, that means that nothing can be done to ever like take that away from them. And that's how they feel, is like if they own a physical thing, they should be able to use it always and forever, no matter what. And I understand like the thought process behind that because it's like your hard spent money, but I feel like that thought process is as about as ignorant as bitching and complaining about GameStop only giving you $10 for your $60 game that you bought 4 years ago. Because I mean, video games are like anything else in the world. They depreciate in value over time. You can't expect to get, full price or even close to full price for something that is a lot older. And I mean, I know that everybody has their own GameStop experiences, but the Nintendo Switch that I have, I didn't pay a dime for it because I took in about 10 games and a gift card from like Christmas or something like that had like $50 on it, maybe, I think. I traded all those in and it paid for it.
Yeah.
And it's because I went in, I had good games that weren't like, massively popular. I even had some old Nintendo titles that I traded in, and Nintendo titles hold their, resale value like crazy. But again, we're getting off topic. I need to stop doing this.
What? Ben's getting off topic?
Long story
Ben,
short
crazy.
about that is when it comes to GameStop, I think you just need to know when to do it, because they have deals all the time of like, oh, if you trade in towards this thing, you get an extra like 60%, which is what I did.
Yeah. I honestly thought that you had a place where you were going that it was going to tie it back, so I let you go.
Yeah, I mean...
Hey, if you guys want to hear Ben talk about GameStop.
The tying point there was just simply that, like, I feel like people who say, I own the physical thing, I should be able to do whatever I want with it, whenever I want with it, always and forever. I feel like that kind of thinking is about as ignorant as thinking that GameStop is out there to screw people, That was the tying point. But anyways,
okay, I got you.
Yeah, moving on.
So so going to the topic of like, should you be able to do or own it forever? I feel like that is something that you should, and like you do technically own it. And I think that you should always have access to the thing, as long as if it makes sense for the assuming that you don't, break any laws with it or anything like that, which is something that we can't get around what the law is. So I'm not going to say what's wrong and right there right now.
Yep.
But for the most part, like, there's an example that I had, like, Army of Two, which we talked about a couple podcasts ago. I got my friend to buy it off of Amazon for like $2. Well, we were at like different colleges, and I was like, let's just play this game. It's kind of fun. It's $2. Just order it. And we tried playing it, but they had shut the servers, or EA had shut the servers down.
Yeah,
which makes perfect sense. There's no reason for them to keep the servers up for that game when there was, I think, honestly, at one point there was like 4 people online playing it. One of my friends and I were the two of those people. um, but like we couldn't play it. The only way to play that game now is on split screen. But I'm okay with that. Like if EA came to me and was like, "Hey, we shut down the servers, and hey, we're gonna revoke your disc because fuck you," like that isn't within their right technically under this system.
Sure.
I believe, and I don't think that should be in their right under the system that we have in place.
But why?
Because
I mean, my main counter argument is the ideology of like I bought this thing, I should be able to play it how it was intended to be played for all eternity is an archaic way of thinking that's tied back to offline consoles and cartridges that weren't updated.
Sure, but again, like I'm not talking about like the online aspects of it. I'm talking like I have my 360 still. I could plug in my 360, turn it on, put in Army of Two, and I could play Army of Two right now.
Yeah.
Offline. And I don't think that that's reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable to purchase a game expecting to be able to do that as long as if I have the equipment to do so. That the company could technically come and say, "Hey, no. This is our game, we're taking it away from you." Which is possible. Not likely. Like I'm not thinking EA's not going to come to my door and be like, "Scott, give us the game." But like it's weird that it's like that media has that quality to purchases, because anything else, like once you buy something, it is yours and you're able to do it. Like obviously, I guess like the difference is like online games have a service that goes with it, and like obviously if you pay for the service, like if I paid EA like $5 a month to keep the servers online, then they shouldn't shut down the servers. Yeah. Or like at least for the month that I paid for or whatever. But
yeah. But I mean, I agree with you. Like, EA shouldn't be able to like come into your house and be like, "We know you've been playing Army of Two. That's not allowed. Give it." Like that obviously shouldn't be allowed to happen, and that's why it can't happen. The only way that a license can ever be revoked is through a clear violation of terms of service. Okay. So, like, the only way that they would ever legally be able to essentially force you to hand over physical media would be to, like, if you pissed them off because you were modding it and putting in swinging dicks everywhere or something. Like, again, that's like super unlikely that they would go to the lengths of repossessing that physical media, especially for such an old game. But it technically, like I said, only through a violation of the terms of use would they be able to revoke that license. Now, I mean, I know that maybe not in all of them, but in some instances, the terms of service will state explicitly that, the license can be revoked at any point in time without reason or whatever, but that legally will never stand in court.
Sure.
There have been instances of companies trying to revoke licenses for that. Granted, they're typically like, shitty third-party people, selling garbage games on Steam or something like that, and they're trying to revoke it from like Jim Sterling or someone. Yeah. But those types of things will never hold up because the terms of service isn't actually legally binding. Like, if Apple put in their next update, we own your soul, like in that South Park episode or whatever, that wouldn't like, they don't actually own your soul. Like, I mean,
well, lucky for me, I don't have a soul, so
yeah, because you're a ginger. Anyways, but no, because those aren't like actually legally binding agreements, there's nothing that they can really do to force you to give up that license.
Okay.
But that being said, like, I still don't personally feel like just simply because you own a license that means that you can do whatever you want with it.
Why though? Like what?
I'm not saying that like I would stop anybody. I just.
So I'm just curious. Well, like, let's say I wanted to put some swinging dicks in Army 2, right?
Yeah.
Your example, not mine.
Yeah.
And I did it for my own personal enjoyment. No one outside of my room knows about the swinging dicks in Army 2.
Now I know what you do in your free time.
I spend a lot of time in my room. Okay. Anyway, why do you like? What is your problem with that? And like that's what it, like, is it because there's like rules in place, or is it because that you're like actually opposed to it? Because if it's just because there are rules in place, then maybe we should think about changing the rules.
It's almost a little bit of both, I guess, in kind of a weird way. The main reason that I have a problem with it is because I feel like it's kind of an all or nothing thing. You're for it or you're not. And if you're doing it for like your own personal enjoyment, that kind of thing, then like, sure, fine, whatever. That's how I feel about it. But at the same time, like, I feel like the moment you try to even sort of redistribute that or repurpose it in a way for any sort of illicit gains,
yeah, no,
it immediately becomes a problem. I mean, like, technically, like, what I did with WoW all those years ago, you know, like when my friend came over, installed it, and then like, you know, did some things, and he's like, you know, in about an hour or two, I'm going to be at home. I'm going to have like a fake server up and we can play together. Yeah. Like, that's fucking shitty as hell.
It really is. I remember my first quote unquote pirating experience, I guess it was pirating, was my friend burned a copy of Age of Empires 2 and gave it to me.
You bastard. That was an amazing game. You should have purchased. Actually, you have purchased it.
Wait,
now, but
no, wait. Sorry, hold on. I had the copy, and my friend was like, "Here, give me that, and I'll burn a copy of it." And I was like, "I'm like 10 years old. I don't know what this means." Yeah. And then I realized a couple years later, I was like, "I broke the law."
Yeah, but I mean, that kind of goes even as far as to address Viper the Red.
Good segue, Ben.
Simply because you own a game on a console, in my opinion, does not give you the right to emulate it on PC. Yeah. Because at that point, that is piracy. Plain and simple. I don't care if you do nothing to modify the game, and I don't care if you redistribute it, that is piracy. It's no different than burning a DVD to your PC. Yeah. Because, I mean, like, there are safeguards in place to prevent that from happening. So you have to go out of your way to essentially copy that game and put it onto a PC platform. And I know that there are a lot of people that are like, you know, well, I just prefer to play on PC, or maybe I don't have this console or whatever. And at that point, like, anybody that says, well, I pirate games because I don't have enough money. Personally, if you ask me, that's on you. You do not deserve to have everything in the world in terms of entertainment value. And like, that is not a right. You are not entitled to that. Yeah. That is why it costs money. Like, so you can't just be like, well, I don't have the money, but I deserve that Lamborghini, so give it. Like, that's not how it works.
So you said something that's very particular, is that people prefer to play on PC, or perhaps they don't have the console. And I feel like that they don't have the console is the issue with emulating on a PC. Because Nintendo made Breath of the Wild to sell the Switch consoles and, you know, to some extent the Wii U consoles that it's on. And if you're bypassing that, then you are basically taking the sale of, like, even if you bought the Breath of the Wild, you're taking a sale of a console unit from Nintendo.
Well, I mean, and that, like, even that aside, like,
well, I'm saying, like, because it kind of goes into the same argument as, like, if you buy the game, right, like, you should, like, we were talking about earlier, like, what's the extent of, like, what's okay with what to do with it. And if you're just playing it on your PC by yourself and you're not redistributing that in any way,
Well, I mean,
technically,
I
that's
feel
not
I feel
bad.
like playing it on a platform for which it is unintended, regardless of the status of the platform it was intended. Like, if an Xbox 360 game came out today and you didn't have an Xbox 360 but you really wanted to play it and you bought it but then burn it to your PC, I'd be like, come on, Scott. Like, what the fuck? Because
Okay,
I feel like the moment you go outside of the means in which it's supposed to be naturally enjoyed.
Sure. And I'm not disagreeing with you on that. I'm just saying that, like, for the argument's sake, that, like, there are people who are like, hey, it's my game, I should be able to play it how I want. Which I understand that argument. I don't agree with the argument, but I understand that it's like, okay, I'm not really hurting anyone at that point. It's because it really is a victim of Islam. Like, you paid for the game, you just want to play it somewhere else. Like, you're not, as long as if you're not redistributing it, you're really not hurting anyone else. So, like, I understand that argument. But what I'm saying is that, like, you're hurting, like, the Nintendo business model. And even if, like, let's say you're playing the new Call of Duty game and you bought it for Xbox, but you wanted to play it on PC, so I don't think that would work necessarily, but, like, it wouldn't be good and you wouldn't be able to play online. But even if you could, you're taking that money away from, I think they sell it on Steam.
Yeah.
Like, you're taking that money from Steam and giving it to Microsoft. And, like, that's where the emulation, like, I think, like, some people would probably understand that the moral argument is that, like, you're at that point you are stealing money. You might say, like, I bought the game anyway, but there's publishers and the console makers, everyone along the lines, like, someone in there is getting screwed over.
Yeah.
Because you're not giving the money to the right people.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, even if someone was like, you know, hey, you know, I do own a Switch and a Wii U, and I bought it, you know, on both, but I really want to play it on my PC. I don't honestly think that's anything that you should do. But I mean, that's just like a personal, like, kind of moral thing. Just simply because, I mean, like, realistically, when you look at it, even if, like, let's say you know, pirated it or burned it to your computer or whatever, and then let's say even if your friends owned it and you decided to give it to PC or give it on PC to your friends or whatever, like, there's so much that goes into making a video game that I feel like a lot of people are willing to neglect. And maybe it's because of sheer ignorance, you know, maybe they just don't simply know, or maybe they do know but don't care. But I feel like doing anything to potentially harm that business model is realistically, like, only ever going to result in bad things.
Sure.
Because, I mean, the moment that we stop caring as consumers about the rules and everything is the moment that, you know, like, our publishers and developers are going to have to start finding ways to either make us care or they will stop caring themselves.
Yeah.
And that's how we get another, you know, video game crash of the 80s.
Sure. And that's definitely a topic for another time. I know you can go for hours and hours on that.
I mean, not really. It's... It basically boils down to, like, a don't be stupid. Stupid.
I know, but I think I could get you talking about that for a while if I really wanted to.
Probably. You can get me talking about anything for a while.
It's really true. We kind of do that to each other. But anyway, but yeah, I think that pretty much ends this episode at right about the 30-minute mark. So good for us. Do you have any last second thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said at the beginning, like, I know I have kind of the unpopular opinion, simply because there are a lot of people out there that are like, you know, I bought it, I should be able to do whatever I want with it. And I know a lot of my opinion is kind of a matter of principle, but so is the opposite of that. Like,
yeah,
there's not really any sort of, like, legal standing that you can possibly take on either side, really, because
Yeah, and I think that that's where the problem is. Like,
It's
same thing
a
with copyright.
giant gray area. Like,
Yeah, the copyright in like DMCA stuff that's going on, like there's nothing, and like even with like our YouTube stuff, there's so many like gray area, just kind of like see what happens with copyright and what we're able to do with games and stuff. So at some point we have to start making laws that actually make sense for the age that we're in.
but that would mean that like our government actually does something for once instead of sitting on their thumbs.
Yeah. Politics. Anyway, thank you, Viper the Red, for sparking that conversation. We appreciate it. And if any of you, or even Viper the Red again, want us to talk about anything in particular, whether we mentioned it in this podcast, such as the video game crash of the 80s, or anything that caught your interest, let us know in the comments below, and we will do our best to talk about it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time on Split Couch Games.
Goodbye.